Buddy, good afternoon. It's Jean here. I was thinking about my tutorials and flipping out. My safety pins just went all over. That's what I'm going to be talking about. I was looking at my tutorials and I was thinking, I'm assuming that you beginners know what to have in your arsenal of notions of when you begin quilting, and I thought maybe you guys don't. Probably you have your scissors and you have your cutting mat, but I was thinking if you're absolutely brand spanking new to quilting, it may be of some assistance, I don't know, or may not, for me to tell you the few things that I use that pretty much every quilter should have. So I'm just going to take a few minutes, probably longer, to tell you the few things that I have. I've been sewing and collecting forever now, as you know. But actually, it's just pretty much the basic things. You're obviously, when you want to start making a quilt, you're obviously want to start getting fabric, right? So you're going to want to buy some fabric. I have fabric coming out my wazoo, as you know. If you have a pattern, then by all means start collecting either fat quarters or charm squares or yardage of whatever fabric. That's a basic. Then you're going to need batting, and I actually use this batting. I get my batting from Amazon. You can get it from your local quilt store, and there are literally dozens and dozens of different battings. You can get wool and polyester, different thicknesses, cotton. I like when I make a cotton quilt, obviously your fabric wants to be 100% cotton. There's fabrics like a poly cotton, going back to the fabric. Poly cotton is okay, but 100% cotton for quilts, I find it breathes, it's the nicest, as is batting. I like 100% cotton batting. Having said that, there's a batting that's 80% poly and 20% cotton, or 80% cotton, 20% poly, which is nice. I use myself, it's called Warm and Plush. It's from the Warm Company. There's Warm and Natural from the Warm Company, Warm and Plush. Again, there's Quilter's Dream. Go online, do some homework, and find some nice batting. And actually, it's just a matter of a preference. I prefer this batting, which is called Warm and Plush. I get it from Amazon on large rolls. The first thing you're going to be needing also is a cutting mat. Okay? Cutting mats can be expensive. You can get small cutting mats. You can get large cutting mats. They have like an 18 by 24 inch cutting mat, which is a nice size. I prefer this. This is a 36 by 36 inch cutting mat. I prefer the 36 inch by 36 because you can cut large pieces of fabric, obviously, duh. This happens to be an Olfa. There are Drits. There are Fistcarz cutting mats. Again, whatever your budget will allow. If you can afford, perhaps with a coupon at a local quilt store or at a quilt show, or Joann's or somewhere, or even Walmart, get the largest that your budget will allow. You'll be grateful to have a large cutting mat. Then also, you're obviously going to be needing your rotary cutters and your rulers. Now, I have in my possession, I have a million rulers. One of the rulers that I use an awfully lot is my, it's over here, is my 6 inch by 24 inch ruler. But you can get square rulers. I like square rulers, all different sizes. I like the 6 inch by 24 inch ruler. Again, you can get their Drits, Creative Grids, Fistcarz, Olfa. You can get all sorts of different rulers, and then also different brands of rotary cutters. I like a small one. I like Fistcarz myself. I have the small one. I think this is the 45 millimeter, and this is the 60 millimeter blade. If you're going to be using these rotary cutters, this one. And also, if you're not comfortable, you'll want to be getting gloves. They're almost like a chain mail glove. If you're klutzy and if you're not careful reading the instructions, rotary cutters can take your fingers off. It happened to me. I was an experienced quilter. I was not tired. I was not rushing, and I cut the top of my finger off with a rotary cutter, and I had to go into surgery to have a piece of skin grafted onto my finger. Rotary cutters are hideously dangerous, which brings me to, and if you've seen me talk before, I do apologize because I go on and on and on about this cutter itself. This is my Fistcarz ruler. I was talking about it before. It has the rotary cutter hidden, and it is only engaged when you push this down and cut. This can cut up to 4, 5, 6 pieces of fabric. I love my Fistcarz ruler. And again, a lot of people are saying, could you send me the link or post the link? I'm ever so sorry. I don't know how to do that quite yet. But all of these things are available online, Amazon, your local quilt stores, your hobby stores have all of these. These are very basic things that you need. What else do you need for quilting? A good pair of scissors. I have these scissors. I have Fistcarz scissors. Again, I got these at Joann. What you're going to want in your sewing room or your sewing table or your sewing corner is you're wanting to have good fabric scissors, and yet another pair of good paper scissors. And make sure nobody cuts your, uses your fabric scissors. They will dull on cardboard, so, if you don't want to start World War III because you've started it, don't let anybody touch your fabric scissors to keep them nice and sharp. So have an extra pair. I also like to keep, and this is just a handy little hint, I don't know if you can see this, it's tied. I always keep a little tiny pair of scissors attached to my sewing machine on a cord, and that way they don't go missing. Because your scissors, your scissors always are walking away. Which brings me to the next thing, a sewing machine, obviously. Whatever you can afford. Obviously the best machine is what you can afford to spend the most money. That doesn't mean you have to spend a whole bunch of money. I have several machines here. I have 3 Husqvarna machines, which I've been very pleased with. I have a Husqvarna Sapphire, it's called. I like that very, very much, but the one I use most all the time is my Brother. It's called a Brother VQ3000. It is a quilting machine as such because it has a large throat. Again, you can get a smaller machine if you're going to be doing smaller projects since you're a beginner. But get the best that you can afford. That's what's important. This isn't supposed to kill us. There are literally hundreds of gadgets that you can get, rulers and all sorts of things that are wonderful, but when you're starting out, these are the basic things you need. A seam ripper. You're going to be unsewing at one point or other. Get a nice sharp seam ripper. I like a little one that I can hold. It's an extension of my hands. You're going to be needing a tape to measure a lot of things, to measure out your batting. I like the ones that are actually 120 inches. I like these at 120 inches. You can obviously a tape measure is a tape measure, but I like the ones that are 120 inches. You want to get, when you have your machine, you maybe want to even start experimenting with different size needles. They have universal needles. These are all Schmetz. SCHMETZ, which is sort of they have all sorts of different needles, but I like Schmetz. Universal is sort of for all fabrics. Then there's called a Microtex, which pierces the fabric, and then there's for quilting you can get a jeans, a heavier duty, which I quite like. I mean, they're sewing machine needles. They don't, shoot fire out their butt. They're just sewing machine needles. But you can mess about with your needles on your different fabrics. The one thing is to get the best thread that you can afford. I've just recently discovered Aurifil. I've been talking about this before. Very expensive. You can get it online for a bit cheaper. But I also like Connecting Thread, 100% cotton. You always want to see if you can use 100% cotton for the most part. I have collected over the years tons of safety pins because I pin based my quilts, and I like a large safety pin to do that. They have curved safety pins, like, you know, yeah, safety pin's a safety pin, but you want the largest ones if you are going to be pin basting your quilts. Having said that, there's also for basting your quilt sandwich together, perhaps you want to start small, they have a spray. I don't have it. I've never used it. I think it's called 505. You can find it in a craft store. It's a spray adhesive that you gently spray. I think I have a problem with maybe my own thing, thinking, I'm spraying a substance, a glue. I don't love it. So I go by my safety pins, but a lot of people swear by it. It's easy. You can reposition your batting and your backing. So maybe you want to try the adhesive spray. I also, this is silly. This is a magnet. I don't know where I got it. I think I got it at Home Depot or something. But it picks up pins. Like if I'm dropping stuff, my back sometimes gets jacked up, and I'll just go along and I'll pick up my pins with a nice magnet. I don't know where I got that, but I'm sure like at a hardware store or even maybe a craft store they'll have it. This is just handy to have a magnet around. You want to have extra bobbins when you're buying your machine, whatever bobbin size you get. Again, I have a Brother machine, and I use exclusively the bobbins that are meant for my machine. Now, years ago, in my older machines, I found that bobbins were sort of interchangeable. You could sort of get a universal bobbin. No more. I think it's like like a planned obsolescence. Like, I really think that, like, well, this machine needs this bobbin. They probably could have made them that they were all universal, but they don't. So you want to get an extra supply of bobbins for your machine. I also like when I do, which you won't be probably doing too much, but for appliquing, which is putting another decorative piece on fabric, I use glue. I use Elmer's school glue sticks. It's washable. I've never ever had a problem. You can get, again, from your quilt store, you can get specialty glues for fabric. You can get specialty glue sticks. These are cheap. I get them when they're school supply. I get them by the dozen. When I want to do my applique, I've never had a problem with that. When you want to start, again, you're starting out, but what I do like to have when I'm folding my fabric, if you get some yardage and you have a small stash and you're like, you fold it real pretty, I like to fold my fabric. As you can see, I have so much fabric. I folded it on these. They are called comic book boards. I got these on Amazon. That was the cheapest place. It's like an acid-free card stock in this standard size. And then you fold your fabric selvage to selvage, and then you make a nice, neat package. And I advocate for these because again, if you've been following me or not, my sewing room was always lovely, but it was a mess up until about 3 or 4 months ago when I discovered these. And I pulled out all my fabric. It took me about a week because I have a lot. And I started folding my fabric and seeing what I have. I know exactly what I have now. You may be thinking, oh, that was a bit of a waste for you to buy the fabric. It wasn't. I mean, I collect fabric. I have so much fabric. But I haven't gone to the shop in months because I go shopping in my room now. Because I have been collecting fabric for 25, 30 years now. But I find these boards are very handy, even beginners. You buy a little bit of this and buy a little bit of that. You want to keep track of your goods that you have. I wanted to show you my iron. It's called an Olicio iron that lifts up. I think maybe you've seen me using it. It lifts up. It's like a hydraulic lift. I love my Olicio Pro. You can get them in different colors. I think Jenny Dones uses a pink one. I use the yellow one. It's expensive. It's not cheap. But I just love it. It has a long cord and it has a long shut-off time. Some irons, which is a good thing, shut off like within 7 or 8 minutes. That's fine if you're ironing a shirt and you walk away. When you're sewing, you'll be sitting down at your machine, maybe chain piecing or stitching for 20 minutes. And you go over and your iron's turned off. Pain in the butt. So this has a long shut off time, which I like very much. And I do use a sizing, and I do also use, I use canned spray starch, I use starch sizing, different ones at my local stores, and then I use just a plain water. I never put water in my irons. That's my personal thing. So I use just a dollar store spray bottle with water. And then my starches. And a lot of people say, starches, like, I've read this, like, attract bugs. And I'm thinking, I've never, ever had a bug attracted to my quilts. So maybe some people have bugs. I don't know. I've never had a bug attracted to my starch. It's fine. Oh, here, this, while I'm looking at it, maybe I can pull it into here. My lighting. My sewing machine is good, but my lighting, which again, you can get all sorts of different figurations. I had bought this long one at a quilt show. I love my lighting. Let me see. It's fantastic for sewing right here over my sewing machine, as well as I have my overhead lighting. Lighting is key in your sewing room. I actually have two, actually. You can get dozens and dozens of different rulers. There are your head will spin. Get yourself a 12-inch by 12-inch square, or get yourself smaller ones. You can spend hundreds. So I'm not telling you to. I think a regular 6 by 24-inch ruler, the one I do like, it's a specialty. It's called the setting triangle. To make square within square blocks, this is a really nice rule. I have dozens of them, but this is a really nice rule. It's by Ruler Smith Incorporated. One word, Ruler Smith Inc. It's called the Setting Triangle by Lynn Graves. It actually gives you the measurements of a corner block if you wanted to add a block inside. It's really good because you can get messed up with a bias. Again, maybe I'll demonstrate a square within a square. I like that. Another little silly ruler I had gotten. It's a bit gimmicky, the wavy edge. It's a nice little rule to make scalloped edges. Not for a beginner. Again, this is by June Taylor. I like this rule. Again, it's not a beginner's, but it's a nice little thing that I like. Two other things that I have. I like chopsticks. I get a chopstick, and it acts, sometimes your fingers go under the presser foot, and your fingers can get in the way. So I just use a chopstick, so I can get into those little, push my fabric right under my presser foot. It's just a chopstick. And last but not least, there's other dozens and dozens of things that I could show you, but I'm trying to keep this a bit short, is my color wheel. Yeah, I can't go on and off about my color wheel. People are saying, oh, your fabrics, your color combinations. I always go to my color wheel. What looks best on a color? What looks best? Let the experts do the work. Some people are like, oh, I go to the fabric store and I like this, and then I get it home and it's like, wah, wah. And because you might have put it with a color that is pretty, you love, but it might not, go visually. So I always say, even when choosing fabric, get your color wheel. Get a good one. Amazon, I got a big one. I think they come small, perhaps handbag size, but I go to this, and now I've gotten a lot better choosing my, pulling my fabrics, because I've really studied this color wheel. It's fascinating, the theory of color in quilting. Oh, my last thing, I think I did show you before, is if you're wanting to photograph a quilt, these heavy-duty clamps, I got them at Home Depot, really, really heavy duty. I don't know what they're for. They're only a couple bucks each. You can put these, you can hang your quilts up, you can clamp stuff together. It's not really a sewing tool, but I like these for photographing my quilts. I hang it on the back of a quilt, hang it over a fence. These are the basics. These are just the basics. You want it, you can go to town, but even if you start, you may not even like quilting, which is fine. So you're not going to be wanting to spend $1 million on a lot of gadgets, but these are the basics of what you're going to need to make a small hanging. See if you like the craft. If you don't, that's fine. But you won't have this huge outlay because it can, as I was saying before, it can be very, very expensive. So if you have your great-grandmother's sewing machine or your auntie's old sewing machine, get it out. Don't be afraid. This is supposed to be fun. Get some fabric, even if, as I was saying before, you cut up an old shirt, experiment, and then you go get some cheaper fabric, make something small with your basic quilting supplies. So, as I said, you want to start somewhere. This is just a little preview of what I have, what I started with, and so I hope I helped in some way or other. So anyway, I'm going to go eat now. It's a Sunday afternoon. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a good one. Bye.